back pasture. We're back on the dirt journal. You can see got a lot of the weed whacking done, so these are not just access roads, but I go ahead and burn a little strip up the middle there, and that's all you really need for a fire break sometimes, not to mention the low stuff, but instead of just having continuous grass come on up the slope, you give them the breaks. Plus we have a big old area up on top here to park now. Good chance to clean out your culverts and stuff. You see here I gave it actually a couple of stripes and then try and do, a little peel out on the way up. Not to tear up the road. But yeah, got a little flat landing area up here. Good to keep all your stuff in line. So what I actually came out here to show you was we had to bring the spring line down to the little willow. For now, during heavier parts of the year, I'll try and establish full flow in the creek and get it saturated. Ooh! So this has only been a couple of days here, and all I did was extend the line directly down. And I've been using the spring all morning down at the other end of the property, but you can see we still got a little trickle, and for a willow tree to be on permanent flow like that, and you can see to buffer against the heat, I came out and I used a lot of the native grass here to go ahead and make like a top dressing, a covering, so that keeps the UV rays from penetrating so much and from the heat evaporating away, so you get this layer of sponge. You can see I went ahead and did that, and that'll hold moisture even when it doesn't have water. So that was the first part, but then I actually got the line down here. This is biochar charcoal. We'll just call it charcoal on the dirt journal. And of course it's got phosphorus, potassium, and nitrogen in it, so it feeds the plants is the basic of it. It's a long-term feed because you can imagine for as long as it takes that piece to break down and turn into dirt, it's going to be providing some food. You don't want to put too much on there or you'll actually create lye if you have standing water. That's one of the ways that you can make a lye. Oh, look who I just got off my neck. So it's tick season, remember, wherever you are in the world. I don't even know how that one got on me. Literally somehow got on my neck as I'm walking through a field that's only this tall, so probably up the pant leg, up the back of my neck. It's where they tend to hang out, is spots where animals can't get them, so they go for where an animal couldn't reach on your neck. But look at this. I know that doesn't look like a lot. This is a dry little lake bed here. Now I had dreams of filling this up splashy, and it might go. But first, it's got to do a lot of saturation. This footprint went dry. It went bone dry, so this may need to penetrate down, down, down before it can ever start stacking up water to where you see water on the surface. But that doesn't mean, all of a sudden our little dry field out here. Ah, look at that. There's moisture there. So you can see the water actually flow right about there. That's where we are. It's stacked up to there. Oh, look at these. I think these are boulders of jade that are out here. I know it looks kind of rough, but when you bust these open, they're so pretty. But yep, okay. So that's the report on the willow tree. Scant little thing that it is. But look what it's sitting in now. It's got the full run of the show. And an awesome little turret. And I raised it up in case this does actually fill up with water. We don't want to swamp it out too bad. Although willows will grow right in the water. Yeah, and then that just winds all the way up. It's pinned under some rocks, so it's the overflow off that tank. Someday, next winter, maybe we'll try and back it back up to there in the crease. I was trying to saturate this whole thing. Just wasn't going. During rainy season, we can open the tank up all the way and just let it come down. Okay, next. The fire line continues all the way out here. Next little thing. The reason why this patch exists like this is because we had a star thistle outbreak. So, seed theory, one single thistle can make however many seeds, right? Thousands. They can spread. See this entire field? There's not a star thistle out there, and let me tell you, star thistles are invasive. They're non-native. They have the little yellow thorns. They kill horses. We've had lots of horses die over the years out in these valleys from getting their throats full of it. I know that sounds like a wives' tale, but some of the hybrids, it actually happens. And you can see where this was and how big it was. When I first spotted it, it was right there in the thickest. This is its seeds, because that's what nature does, spreading farther and farther and farther out, and it actually made it over the crest. Once seeds have gravity behind them, they can spread. It'll eat this whole thing. It'll hit a creek. Every meadow down from this gets infested. We have flower preserves and everything else down here, so it's some pristine land that hasn't even been completely devastated by the Spanish grasses yet. So since this was on my footprint, we don't use poison, so what I'm going to do, and of course I mean one that I'm in charge of taking care of, what we have here is extreme heat. So you can kill off plants in all the ways that you can keep them alive just by doing the opposite. So I've established, these are not star thistle, these are a different creature. It's actually a type of tarweed that looks like them. I established where the edge of the star thistle infestation was. Seeds spread out from a mother plant. There'll be a pattern. If you look and you pay attention, you can spot it. These have not dropped any seeds this year, but seeds that were dropped in previous years can lay latent. That means that they can last. Some seeds can last for 30 years in the soil. Okay, so that means 30 years later, whenever it's exposed to light or the soil is disturbed or it gets the right conditions, it can sprout again. These aren't quite so long lived, but they are a nasty one. So we're starting this year. This is the mop up. Even if you sprayed poison, same thing. All the seeds aren't affected by Roundup, people. They're not affected by herbicides. The seeds sprout half the time, they become herbicide resistant. So it's not something that you want to do. You'll end up in the same spot. I'm not in a coastal valley where I have constant moisture that are going to resprout these on me and resprout these on me, or I would have to deny them sun or some other sort of thing. What I have here is it's going to run out of water, and there will be no more water. We're in California. We get a dry season that's 3 months long, hard, no rain, usually. So once again, it's a timing and attrition cycle. So timing meaning that you're watching a plant seasons when it goes through, when it seeds. You're letting it spend its energy like a boxer, like your adversary in sports, and then when its energy is spent, you're stepping in at the right moment to take the rest of that energy away from it. So these were probably 3 foot tall. They grow up between the dead of last year. That's all the gray that you see scattered around everywhere, which also creates a shadow. It also creates moisture, so it catches dew and everything else, which keeps the next wave alive, So that's like companion planting, but that's not what we want to do. So we've shattered it down to where we got bare soil exposed everywhere here, and it's running out of water. This is the moisture that was left in the roots after the first cut, and it's trying to grow back. And if you leave it, yeah, it'll force a bunch of heads out. These type of weeds, when you spray them with herbicides, because they're perennial rooted creatures, can actually survive it and, like I said, become resistant. But you wouldn't want to spend all day long out here pulling, because yeah, then the seeds are just going to come back next year. There will be a resprout. This whole thing will resprout. Even if you spray it with poison, it will resprout. What you're trying to do is burn up its energy every year without ever letting it spread any more seeds. If today was the day that last fall, the last seeds dropped. No more seeds drop after this. So there is an expiration date on every seed, and things eat them, kill them, destroy them, and rot them all the time. Plus, grasses will come in, other things will come in, and it's a battle between species all the time that you're not seeing. Constant battle. Generally, if you start getting on one plant and start messing with it and start hurting it and start keeping it down and making sure you're watching it, that's your timing and your cycle. And that's attrition. You're making sure that it's never again going to get off any offspring. No more offspring, no more offspring. You can see it's going to get bone dry. We're going to have to grind it again. It would be like you know, respraying something. So we're going to let it spend its energy again, but never get a head on there. If you let it get heads on there, little flower heads or seed heads, when you cut them, then you've wasted all that energy. So you're going to watch them, you're going to let it spend all the last of the water it has in its roots, and it's going to go, I'm a living thing, so I need to produce the seeds, that's why I came to life. And you're going to go, chop, nope. And then it's going to die, it's going to dry out, it's going to run out of moisture, its year is over, it didn't make any seeds. This area expanding and expanding and expanding, you're going to shrink it up and shrink it up and shrink it up, and instead of infesting an entire watershed, you're going to make it disappear. And you're going to do it without poisons, and you're going to use whatever natural patterns are there to stifle it, to destroy it. If you had constant water here, we'd need to come in here with some sort of black plastic or something and deny light until it was gone. And you'd only have to do that for sections of time. You could do all kinds of things. The point is to stop it from growing or ever getting off any more seeds ever again, and let the other plants develop the area and hog up the space. Really prejudiced against plant species. I'm not too much of a purist. I throw non-native stuff around all the time, but they're just mean and ugly and they hurt a lot. So, you know, enough with that. This bears Achilles' name because the legend is that he used this on his troops to stop their bleeding and heal them up quicker. It's got medicinal things. If you smell yarrow and then you drink Coca-Cola, you'll know what their secret herb is. And then you have a true detail. They're a type of Clarkia. There's about 7 or 8 types in the hills around me in California here. These are kind of closed up for the day. They open and close daily. Photoreactive, I believe. These are little wild woolly sunflowers. They're open now. They were lower profile. Like all things, they spring up in height to bloom. And they'll drop all those seeds. Hold the slope for us. Different type of Clarkia. It hides in the shadow of bushes. It's a little more rare. It's a hot pink Clarkia. Clarkia. Thinner profile. As the poppies go down at this property, the bachelor buttons are coming up. So this is the wave of blue that you see right now all throughout everything. You see they're taking over. And each one of them is a prolific seeder, and they can go a little bit taller than the poppies who are still hanging out. But the poppies start to get more and more and more of a finished off look. Now I'll show you what I'm doing. This is a quick way to finish off. We gotta make sure that we're not taking out the bachelor buttons. They have a ways to go. They're just getting going, so that'll be another wave. I'm gonna pull undesirable little milkweeds out of here. But you can see all the heads on these are finished. There's hardly any actual flowers left. And then inside each one of these pods, if you've ever looked, these are poppy seeds. And they're green still. You see those inside there? But they're just like peas, and they'll dry out, but you don't want to flash dry them where they won't be viable. So this needs to dry slow, preferably on its little stalk. And because the plant has gotten its seeds off and it thinks that it's being successful, it's going to finish out. And these are perennials, so it'll die back to the root. What you can choose to do right here, and I'm going to find the base because obviously the top would be too wide. And I'm going to look for any little crotches in it. See that little crotch that's right there? Meaning that it splits into 2 different directions. That's a good spot to choose my level. If I cut it there, it might actually resprout. It will definitely, if I grab this whole thing, this is a quick way to do it when you have mass. And I won't take it all because I don't want to just put it to sleep. But I'll choose a line. See how I chose a section just like a haircut? I'll kind of stay at that line, making sure not to cut your fingers off. And I'll take this whole bunch. Oh, no, we don't want the bachelor buttons, Nate. Take this whole bunch, snip it off. Now what happens is that you have this bouquet with all the stems facing the same way. You set that down into a paper bag or onto your pile or whatever you're trying to do. I'll show you what we're doing. And let those finish curing up, and all the moisture from the stems will make the flower, the actual seed pod, dry out slower, just like leaving a stem on a flower would help. We're not trying to keep them alive, that's why we're not putting them in water, but we don't want them to dry too fast. Now this, what we've left behind, looks a little shaggy, but it'll be a lower profile. So for fire danger and for ugliness. Right now it looks okay, but as these poppies start to die, they start to look more and more like dried grass, and they start to lay out like this. So you get a lot of the they start looking a little more used. Send them into a second bloom, because what will happen is you'll take all their seeds off, and the plant will sense that, and it'll say, uh-oh, you know, some animal came by and ate all my seed tops, so now I need to reproduce more. So it'll resprout, and it'll give you a wave, another wave. So if this was your first wave and you're taking it off, this will give you your second wave of flowers. You actually get a regrowth of green, and you can make things instead of dying stay around in the season a whole lot longer. Plus, for the other things that are lasting, their profile starts to stand out dramatically against the cut pieces. But yeah, that's an important thing to know. You don't just have to let things lay around and get gangly and die. You can deadhead them, taking their dead heads off. I save the seeds for seed gathering. Pruning too, so the remaining plant, because it's perennial, will resprout and go. I still have sunlight, soil, and time left in my season. And then what you want to do right now is soak this real good with water so it has optimal conditions, and there's no reason why it won't go, okay, I'll regrow. So that's what I'll be doing for the next little bit here, going by each of these clumps, and instead of being a big gangly thing, and make it easier on yourself, take them all at once. Trying to go through it and be super ornamental would be ridiculous. Try and make them into little balls. And you see I have all those seed heads on there. And we'll stack them up with all their butts the same way. And just the bachelor buttons will be here. And then this will be a little green poof that comes out of here with all little new fresh poppies on it. You can keep that alive all through the season doing that. As many times as you have the conditions, meaning the growing season still happening, and then you take waves off, you can get another wave and another wave and another. Smaller profile plants, here's seed. You don't want to stack them up too thick. Trap moisture in between them and start to mildew and ruin your seed batch. But here we have them on a black plastic. It's kind of dished in, so it's going to catch the seeds as they fall out. I'll show you how we get them out. Here's little clumps where it's been trimmed, and you can see the regrowth. It starts to happen. They'll hide all the little cut ends again, and it'll be a little round ball with little flower poppies all over it. And you see the profile on these is all shrunk up. A good example. So instead of being a big tan gangly thing with a few little flowers you can't see anymore because they're lost in the brownness of the dying plant, you have this little globe that's going to thicken up all these little sprouts more and more and more, and just get a bunch of little blooms on it. A little ball of poppies, and not die also. It won't finish out as quick. It'll keep going on. Now here's the little boxes that we filled. I mean, these are as tight as I want to get it. Even then I'll check it and make sure that they're not mildewing. But they're all heads down, taped so that the seeds don't fall out the bottom. Bins that we'll start stacking in here, same thing. These are thousands and thousands of seeds in each one of these. You'll know your seeds are ready because they'll be big and fat and starting to turn yellowy, and the plant will be dying. So You want to catch it before it dies all the way. It's like this, where we have daylilies coming in, and verbena, hollyhock, and the other bulbs. The poppies were all here and they were all big. So now they look a little rough, but same thing. You can see them regenerating their cut stumps, and it allows a bed like this to just have green and tall standing. That's basically what we're trying to do. So I've removed all the poppies out of here, but not actually pulled them out, just cut them short. And this is all the tops out of there. I mean, that is bundles and bundles and bundles. You can see these are finishing out. That's the look of a almost dry. Look at the black seeds in there. Loads and loads. And we won't dry them on this cloth. We'll put them on something where the seeds won't fall through, of course. But yep, it's that time of year. That. So all up poppy seeds. And we'll pile them up, and then we'll thrash them and use my blower and a wheelbarrow to blow off the chaff and fill buckets, literally, with little black seeds. There's still miles of them to go. But a lot of the ones in the open spaces we'll let just fall where they are, and then just trim them sharply with a weed whacker when they're all the way done. Let the roots and the crowns live and just spread the seeds out where it is, so it just becomes a total mat. And that'll reduce the profile and make the dry poppy bodies not a fire danger. But for now, we're letting all of the flowers finish their waves. So just about sharpening up the beds and entrances and stuff, and then cropping things down to a pruned down, dead-headed size. Those bachelor buttons.